Welcome everybody, I am the Mighty Plantain. Thanks for checking out this beer review. This time around, we're actually going to do a full 6 beers. We're going to do the Sam Adams Summer Varieties 12 pack. Of course, there's only 6 varieties in there, so we'll just be having one of each. We don't want to overdo it. In the summer pack this year, we've got the Boston Lager, Sam Adams Summer Ale, the Whitewater IPA, Belgian Session, which we've seen once before, and the brand new Heaven or Hells and the Gose. So Heaven or Hells and Gose, 2 new ones, going to be an unknown quantity, but I believe the tasting order will probably go, we're going to start out with the Summer Ale, of course, and I'm going to put the Gose after that, I think. They tend to be a lighter style of beer. Boston Lager, of course, will come in the middle, and if I remember right, the Belgian Session had some sour notes and some heavier hoppiness that would put it after the Boston Lager. And then we'll probably squeeze the Heaven or Hells in there, and of course the Whitewater IPA, being an IPA, is going to be sampled last. So we'll see how that works out in terms of the flavor profile and if that's the correct arrangement for the flight. Should work out okay. Like I said, there's 2 unknown quantities for me in there, and I don't quite remember exactly what the Belgian Session was like. That was a little while ago that was available, and I tried it. So 4 beers that I've had before, and again, I always reserve the right to change my rating on any of these depending on the mood I'm in and how they stack up to other beers I've had before or, in the meantime. So let's get right into the first one. The Summer Ale will definitely come first. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the lightest of all of them. While I'm pouring this out, make sure to hit me up down below with a like and a share. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll get a notification every time I post a new video. Hopefully you're getting some value out of them and feel like sticking around. I find that most of the feedback I get is that these are pretty informative and sometimes even entertaining and funny. So, very mild citrusy hoppiness coming off of that, but otherwise not much of an aroma at all. It is a very light, slightly cloudy beer. I don't know, maybe about a medium cloudiness, more than slightly cloudy, but a nice golden color, almost honey colored. Here we go. It's a very pleasant, light, citrusy beer. It's perfect for a summer beer, a summer ale for me, honestly. I'll sit around in the summer and I'll drink Coors Light, Miller Lite, a nice, cheap, easy drinking beer. I'll drink them all day long just because that's my goal. I want to sit around and drink beer without thinking about it too much, without really having to get in depth or worrying about the flavor. It's almost like having a nice bottle of water next to you. But the Sam Adams Summer Ale is actually a great alternative to those regular easy drinking light beers because it's just as easy to drink, but it does offer slightly more flavor without going overboard. For those of you who don't like citrusy beers, I would stay away from it. I've got several friends. EM Destroyer does some of these videos with me. He's not a big fan of the Summer Ale just because of the citrusy flavor to it. He doesn't like that at all. So for you folks who don't, stay away from it. But for the rest of us, it's awesome. Really great, easy drinking, lightly citrusy, slightly hoppy summer beer. This one comes in at a 4 out of 5 for me just because of overall drinkability and the experience and the fact that, like I said, I can sit down with it and just go to town without worrying about it. It's also got a fairly light alcohol content compared to some of the other Sam Adams brews. Let's see, where does it come in? 5.3%. So heavier than a lot of your big name beers, but not heavy enough that it's really going to be debilitating over the long run if you pace yourself. So that's the Sam Adams Summer Ale, 4 out of 5 for me. I'm going to finish this one up, and then we're going to come back and do, I believe it was the Got to Goes that I wanted to line up next, so we'll see how that is. So, number 2 in the Sam Adams Summer Varieties, I'm going to try out the Got to Goes. Now, this is a new variety this year from them, and I'm hoping I got it in the lineup right, because I'm not as familiar with the Gose style, Gose, I believe is how it's supposed to be pronounced, style of beers. I do know that it's a German style, and it's designed to be a bit light, so I'm hoping that it slots in nicely between the Summer Ale and the Boston Lager. So we'll just have to find out about that. There we go, got that nice and poured out. Now that is an interesting color. It actually looks a little bit lighter and less cloudy than the Summer Ale. It's not very effervescent. I don't know how to describe the color. It's mostly yellow with hints of amber, maybe a little bit orange. So like I said, very interesting. Earthy. Maybe a little bit of a tang to it, almost a metallic tang. That should be interesting. That is a very, very interesting taste. That metallic tang that I mentioned in the aroma is actually coming through in the taste, but it's mostly in the aftertaste, and it's not an unpleasant kind of metallic taste. It's like a mineral, almost like a rocky, metally rock. It's hard to describe. But it is apparently a characteristic of the Gose style, but is very pronounced in this one. Like I said, I'm not as familiar with the style, and I've only had a few before, but I've never noticed that metallic mineral taste to it. It's interesting in the way that it's interplaying with the rest of the beer. I mean, there's a bit of a slight hoppiness there in the finish, and you can definitely taste that they added some salt and coriander in there. Ooh, pardon, that flavor's really coming through, but it's a very interesting style. I'm really liking it, just for the uniqueness and the difference, and maybe it's just because I'm not as familiar with the Goses, but it's different and getting my attention. I think because of the drinkability and the way all of the different flavors and everything are coming together, and that and the fact that it's got my attention for being so different, and maybe that's not something that's unique to this particular beer. Maybe it's just the Gose style in general. But this one's hitting it at a 4.5 out of 5 for me. Again, I reserve the right to change these ratings in the future. But right now, that's where that one is. Maybe I need to try out some more Goses and see if that still slots in there at the 4.5, or maybe the style itself will grow on me, and this won't be as unique an experience. But for right now, that's a 4.5 out of 5. It's not quite blowing me away with anything in particular, but it is very unique and different in my experience, and that's and drinkable and very, very pleasant. That's what's really putting it up there at that almost perfect rating for me. I am really liking that. I don't think this one's going to last very long, but once I'm done with it, we'll check out the next beer, which I believe will be the Boston Lager. I think that one will slot in very nicely here, because everything else that we're going to check out is going to have either a stronger hop profile or some other flavor elements that that might be overpowering to something like the Boston Lager if I were to drink those first and then let them rest on my palate. Now I have been cleansing with water in between each of these beers, but still some of those tastes do tend to linger, especially the hoppy bitterness. So anyway, enough about that. We'll check out the Boston Lager in a minute. Alright, beer number 3, Sam Adams Boston Lager. Chances are you're familiar with it. I'm willing to bet. For those of you who aren't, I'm going to make this short and simple. This one is always a 5 out of 5. It is a perfectly balanced, drinkable beer. It's actually a yardstick that I use to compare a lot of other beers to. It's got a delicious amber hue to it. It's got slight effervescence, a well-balanced hop profile. The aroma is great. You get a little bit of spicy, a little bit of earthy, a little bit of floral. There's just a little bit of everything in there, an overall hoppy bitterness. And if you sit there smelling it long enough, you'll get distinct notes from all the different hop varieties, all those different esters that you normally would pick up on. A little bit of citrus there, some fruitiness. Just overall a great hop blend. And the malt backbone is just right to bring out all those flavors and complement them and bring everything together. Like I said, perfectly balanced beer. It is delicious. And a great yardstick for comparing other beers to. I love it. Perfect 5 out of 5 every time. I'm going to finish this up, and then we'll move on to the next one. Alright, and beer number 4 from the summer pack is the Belgian Session. This is going to be a Belgian beer, obviously, and most likely a session ale. The label's got some interesting things to say about it, but let's see what we actually taste. Actually, a little bit lighter than the Boston Lager in terms of the color. It's hard to characterize, but it's very clear, slightly amber. Well, very, very nice color to it. I like that. It's very pleasing. Almost looks like a brewed tea. Not much of an aroma coming off, just a bit of general hoppiness. Not getting much of anything off of it. What's that slight general hoppy bitterness? Maybe a little bit of sweetness. Slightly tart and sour up front. Just slightly, though. It's very, very subtle. Maybe a little bit of floral and pine in the finish from the hops. And some slightly spicy notes in the middle there. Overall, it's okay. Nothing really standing out for me at all. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I think I'm actually going to run this at a 2.5. It's an average beer. Like I said, I'm a little disappointed because I'm used to better than average from Sam Adams. But for me, this one's just not really doing it. It's okay. It's got a slightly weak taste to it. Just nothing's really jumping out at me and making me say that's good or wow, but it's not bad either. It's not unpleasant. Yeah, a little bit of floral and pine from the hops, a slight bit of spiciness in the middle. It's got about a medium mouthfeel, slightly tangy and sour up front from the, I believe that's from the Belgian style yeasts. But overall, about average. I'm hitting this with a 2.5 out of 5. I'm going to finish it up. We'll move on to number 4. Number 5, that is. Apparently after 4 beers, 3.5, I can't count. Awesome. Alright, and we are up to beer number 5. This is the other new variety, Heaven or Hells. This is another one that I'm not sure I've got lined up right in terms of the taste profile. It does mention the hoppiness, or at least a couple of specific hop notes rather prominently on the label, so I'm guessing that it's in the right spot, putting it right before the IPA, but we're going to find out in a minute here. That is a really light beer in terms of the color. A very, very pale yellow, very clear, a little bit of effervescence, but not a whole lot. Actually, more than the Gose. The got to Gose. But not very effervescent at all. I wasn't able to get a good head on that. That's probably partly due to a bad pour, but also it's not really very bubbly. A little piney, but mostly grassy. There's a very nice grassy aroma coming off of that. Like mowing the lawn in the summer. Appropriately enough for a summer beer. It's got a heavier mouthfeel than I would have expected based on the appearance of the beer. Well, it's funny because it describes itself on the label as a hazy beer, but it's very, very clear. And the taste, though, could be described as hazy. It's weird. It's almost tasting like what I would expect a more cloudy beer to taste like, based on partly that medium heavy mouthfeel, but the overall profile. Mostly very grassy in terms of the hops. Some very slight sweetness, a little bit of caramel and toffee coming through from the malt. Really kind of overpowered by that grassiness from the hops, though. Grassiness and there's a bit of floral and some pine there too. Overall, quite a decent beer, but a bit lackluster. The grassiness is really kind of getting me and impressing me. I like that. I'm going to put this at a 3.5 out of 5, which is a slightly above average beer. It's very good, very easy to drink, but it's just not, nothing's really standing out a lot for me. So, excuse me. Like the Belgian Session, it's just not impressing, but I am enjoying this more than the Belgian Session. And it is far more drinkable. I'm liking the grassiness. So this one coming in at 3.5 out of 5, which is, again, somewhat above average, just not blowing me away or impressing me, but it is different and unique and standing out a bit, which is bumping it up a couple of points. So I'm going to finish this one, and then we'll move on to the 6th and final beer in this pack. Alright, and we are up to the 6th and final beer in this variety pack, Whitewater IPA. Pretty solid IPA that we've seen several times before and in a couple of different variety packs from Sam Adams. Actually, quite good. Let's check it out this time. Let's see if my opinion has changed any. Slightly hazy. Cloudy even. It's got a nice dull honey-colored hue to it. Not very effervescent. Hops. Citrusy. Citrus and pine. Primarily citrus, a little bit of pine. Not really getting any other notes off it in terms of the hop profile and the aroma. It's quite a hoppy beer. I mean, obviously it's an IPA, so it's going to be pretty hoppy. That's kind of to be expected, but that bitterness hits you up front. Now, I was getting citrus and pine in the aroma, but I'm getting mostly pine, floral, and then just an overall hoppy bitterness in the actual taste. It kind of hits you with pine, fades to floral, and then in the aftertaste is just this hoppy bitterness without a distinct character to it. Medium heavy mouthfeel. You can definitely tell that the haziness actually is, there's some particulate matter in there that's causing that. It's quite good overall. I'm a fan of IPAs, and the Whitewater's always been a pretty solid one. I'm going to hit this with a 3.5 out of 5, which puts it just at a bit above average for an IPA. But there's nothing really impressive or blow me away about it. But it is a good, solid IPA that you can enjoy. So that covers all 6 of those beers. Make sure to hit me up down in the comments or the email link down below. Let me know what you think of these beers yourself, if you agree or disagree with my taste assessment. If you would have lined the flight up any differently and done them in a different order based on the taste profile. I'm curious to know what you have to say. Other than that, folks, thanks for tuning in, sticking around for the full 6 beer review. Cheers. Now, a little while back, we did a bit of a comparison with the Not Your Father's Hard Root Beer review.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for the beer, man. So, highly recommended by you. The Extreme Beer Fest this weekend. We'll be able to get a hold of, I believe it's the American